Okay. So what is BDD? Basically, BDD uses human readable descriptions as basis for testing. So what exactly is this human readable descriptions? We're going to look into these uh, features right now. So this particular human readable descriptions, you have, it's kind of in a text form, basically. So instead of writing a code, you write it in English, and your this particular PDD format will have a feature file, which is basically like a type. Inside it is just a text. Basically, it's just a text file. So with extension of dot feature. So inside it, you have your feature title. So which explains the title of the application of the testing. You have a short description actually. So you would describe what that particular application or scenario should do. In most cases, some people will use like as a so person, I want to do this so that you can put the form the benefit of it. So like as a user of prep major, I want to search for a course so that I can take the course, something like that. So that's what we are talking about. So that is the feature. So then also you have the given when then, right? Given when then. So in this given when then, you have your given clause, which is the beginning of the scenario, actually. So which is like a precondition, basically. You want to say, given I do this. Then your when is like an event that should trigger a scenario, basically. So that's an event that triggers a scenario, like when I click on this or when I do this, so basically these are your actions, what you need to do, basically. Now, then is your expected outcome, what you are expecting from those actions. So when they say BDD is about giving when then, this is what they mean. So you have your giving clause, you have your when clause, and you have your then clause. So like I said, your giving clause is your precondition, what you want to do before you start your action. Yeah, then your when is what the actions, the event that needs to trigger your scenario. Then you have your then, which is basically what you are expecting to see. So, however, if you have any question, please do type your question. I will come back to that. So, okay. Right. In the BDD, because we are going to be using BDD a lot, actually, so there are keywords that you need to use. The primary keywords are the feature. So you're going to put feature in there. I'm going to explain that. And you have your given, when, then, and, but. And you have background, you have scenario outline, and you have examples. So we're going to look into this, and I'm going to give you examples of how they are used. And other keywords that you're going to see also on dot string, data table, tag, and also comment. We are going to look at how these are used. So the first thing we need to consider now is comments. Like every programming language that you have, there are always going to be comments. So they are permitted, basically. So what happens, like when you put a comment in a code, the computer basically ignores it, right? It's not, so you can actually use that to explain what you're about to do. So, and this particular, in BDD or in Specflow, the comments are only permitted at the start of your feature statement on your feature file. So you cannot put a comment in the middle or at the end. Yeah, you can only put comment at the beginning of a new line, right? You cannot put it, because in other side you can put it in end of the line or something like that. You can only put comment at the beginning of a new line, actually. So, and how do you do the comment? You put hash, right? Because once you put a hash, anything after that becomes a comment. So, and if you C#, you can actually put a comment at the end or at the beginning, or or at the beginning. But in Specflow, you're only going to put your comment at the beginning of it, and it's only permitted at the beginning of a line. So, and as well, you cannot use block comments. So in C# that block comments, but you can use that. So this is an example right now. So when you want to do comments in Specflow, you put this particular hash sign, and then you put your comments, basically what you want to explain. So like for instance, hash, this text is for login covering both valid and invalid. So that's basically what I have actually added now. So, and that is the first example. So how to use hash or comment. So the next one is indentation, right? So one, it is recommended that you indent your feature files, as you can see, like I have done, but it is not mandatory. Basically, it is only recommended so that you can be able to read it and so that it's easy to read. So you can put a tab or you can put a space on it so that it's easy for you to read, basically. So it is not that you have to indent it. I know for so programming language like Python, you have to indent it properly for it to work. So, but for BDD or Specflow, you don't need to indent it, but it's recommended so that you can be able to read it properly. So now another one is, this is an example of a Specflow feature file. So you can see, sorry, excuse me. So apologies for that. My alarm went off. So, okay, all right. So this is an example of a feature file. So that I've already put in there right now. So, and you have your feature, right, which is the feature you want to test. I want to test login. So, and I said as a user of Giftread, when I log into Giftread, so so that I want to log into Giftread so I can join Blue Sky community on Giftread. This is a scenario that I want to do. And what do I need to do? The first one is like, I just put a comment here to explain what I wanted to do, but you don't need to, this will be disregarded. So you don't need to worry about this. So first scenario, right? Login, giving, when, then, right? So you have your giving, which is your precondition. Given I am a Giftread user, when I log into Giftread, then I am logged in. So this is kind of how you are going to be writing your feature file, right? So, and so let's look at each one of these keywords now, one after the other. So the first one that you have is the feature, right? So the purpose of feature keyword is to provide high-level description. As you can see where we have right now, it actually provides you a description of what you are about to do, basically. Like looking at the feature here, it said login. It shows that it's a login functionality. And then you have descriptions about the login. So basically, so that actually describes what the feature is doing. So And also know that when you write your feature, right, you need to follow it immediately with a colon. So you have feature and you have a colon and you have your login, basically. So that's what you need to do. And then also you also put your description at the end. So reading this, you can understand what the test is all about. So I've spoken about I've spoken about this as well. So let's go to the given. So the given, like I said, is basically like a precondition. So it's like it's where your application, for those guys that don't know what a precondition is, basically it's like before you start your testing, what is the state your system should be in? For instance, if you want to perform an operation or an action that requires that particular user to be logged in, so you would log in first, then start your operations or your actions. So that login is your precondition because you need that. Someone said cannot hear anything. Please, can you type if you can hear me properly? If that's fine. I just need to, if you can hear me properly, can you say yes, please? All right, cool, thank you. All right, thank you. So yeah, so that is your precondition. So your precondition is basically the state where your application should be in before you start your when clause. So I'm going to give some examples later so that you can be able to know this. Then, so yeah, this is an example. So given I open a browser, when I navigate to whatever your URL is, and I click on login. So what I am saying here right now, as you can see now, this is basically a given clause, but with two ands. So these two right now are still given clause because they are only being joined together with and, basically. So this is saying given I open a browser, given and I navigate to giphy.com, given I click on login. So all these ones are still given clause. So you can concatenate a given clause with a lot of ands. All of them will still be a given, basically. So this is an example of how you can put more than one clause, right, together with an and statement. So let's go to a when, right? So when basically describe the event or actions so that you want to perform. So when, for instance, when you are typing something on the system, you want to, maybe create an event, or you want to search for something on the computer. So it's basically a when clause. So that particular action, that particular step, you will put in a when clause. So we're going to go through a practical experience to explain this better. So now you have when, after you've clicked on login, so when you click on sign in and you enter your email address and you enter your password. So you can see now that now this is now the operation. You enter your email address, you enter your password. So basically you would put your when clause in this, and bear in mind that this is only a login scenarios. So it's a login scenario. So it might be different for other features that you are testing. So you don't need to worry about this. We'll continue when we have the practical session. So then you have the then clause. Like I said, the then clause is your expected outcome. So where you're going to describe your observation actually and your output. So that's where you put your assertions. So I'll talk about what are assertions and how you can actually use them. Okay. So the So how to use the then clause, right? You have then the user is logged in. So the user is logged in, and you also have the name of the user is displayed. So both of these are then clauses. So and so as well as using and you can use but as well. So you've seen an example that I have done before, and a good example is this one, then and but basically. So but basically is like to negate what you're expecting to do. So and background is another thing that you can use. A background is placed as in the first scenario. Yeah. So I'm going to show you that actually. So you need to paste it uh, before the first scenario or your scenario outline. So this is very, very important. So and so let's go and do an example actually. Okay. Okay, all right. So this is an example that I have done right now. As you can see, so these are three different scenarios, and something are common in there. So you can see giving an open browser and those things are common. So because they are common, you can decide to put them in your background. So the background is actually helps you to put the common steps together so that you can group them. So when you have a scenarios like this, and then you can bring them together and put them in a given in a background like those ones right now. So you just bring them out and they become your background. So you can put them in a background. So giving open a browser. So when these are now left out, the other ones basically, as you can see, this one right now, they are not without the given clause. So when you are running your code, the background is executed first, basically. The backgrounds are executed first before the other steps. So it's going to be giving an open browser and I navigate to gift reach and I click on login. When I click on, so you will go from there like that. At this point also, it will also do this particular background and then the scenario, and also comes back again and do this particular background and this scenario. That's how it's going to go through that. So, and okay, in your Specflow, you can pass different arguments. You can pass different arguments. So, how you pass different arguments? So, you can do that using quotes, right? Let's say you want to pass your username and password. So, you can say, given an enter the, you just put your username there and enter that particular password. So that is one way to do that. So you can pass different parameters. So this is basically like dynamically putting your parameter inside your feature file so that you don't need to put inside the code. So when your password changes, you don't need to go into your code. You can go into your feature file and change the password from there. So you also have data table to pass your data in. So for instance, right now, so when we have a scenario like this, so we have the login. When I open the browser, you click on gift page and you click on login, you click on sign in, and you enter email address. But also I want to enter email address, but I want to give the email address that I entered. So for you to do that, you need to just put them in a pipe like that. So, and you have an enter email address and put them in a pipe. And I enter password, you put them in the pipe like that. So this will pass this particular parameter to your email, and this one is a parameter for your password. You can do that. So this is one way of passing a parameter into your feature file. So you can also use scenario outline as well to pass parameter. So if you need to do that, so you can use something like that. So when you write your feature file, the step, and instead of saying email, you put them in a less than or greater than quote, like that. Less than or greater than, less than or greater than. That becomes a parameter. So once you do that, one thing that you also need to do is, instead of saying, as you can see previously, I've been using scenario, but going forward, I will use scenario outline. Scenario outline always goes with example. So if you have scenario and you put example, it's going to give you error message. So you always ensure that you have scenario outline for you to be able to use example. So you cannot use scenario outline and you don't have example. This is very, very important. So, and once you have this less than or greater than quotation-ish, right? So you can use example. So your email address is what you've put in there. It's one of the parameter, the variable. And the second variable is the password. That is another one here. And I have my result, that's one. So these three variables is what you will now put in your examples. So to explain what this would do is, like, for each of your run is going to open your browser, navigate to that particular page, click on login, click on sign in. Then after that, enter email address. But instead of entering this email address as email address that is there, it's going to go in there and put correct at test.com. And then password is going to change that to password, correct password. That will be your password. And then it's going to confirm that the result is successful. Then that is one scenario. After he has done that, he's going to go back again, do this step, and do this step again. On the second iteration, he's going to use this particular data now. And then after finishing that, it's going to go again, another iteration, but at this particular time, use the third data set. That's how it's going to do. So a good example using read data is this. Let's say I put this particular data here. So let's say it's my correct data, right? And my password, I'm able to log in successfully. But if I do all the other ones, I am not able to log in successfully. So this is kind of an example using read data. So yeah, don't worry about this one. So I think I would quickly just do a quick demo about this, to be honest. So if you have any question, let me know. So I will do a quick demo now, just with a site, so that we can look into this quickly. Any question? Okay. Okay, all right. So let's say we are given a site like this to test. Okay. So let me go to the home page. Okay, there's a question. If I have data of about 100, Can I save it in a separate file and call it from there? The answer is yes. Yeah. So for instance, so I think that is a good question, to be honest. That's a good question, because if you have a lot of data, right, and you have a lot of data, let's say you have more than 20 actually. So data table is not the best place to put it, because it would be very, very long. It will be very, very long. So what you would do is you can use a CSV, or you can use an XML, or you can put in a database and call it from your feature file. So that's another option that you can get data across. So, and you don't even need to use scenario outline, you just use example. You don't need to use example as well. Just use your scenario when you can just say, when I enter data. So then your test can get the data from there actually. So that's another thing. So you won't need to use scenario outline. So I think that is a good question. Okay, all right, let's quickly do this. I'm not sure that that person wanted to say something or not. So. Okay. Okay, so another question is like, will I be able to show you how it's done? Yes, but not in this particular class, okay? So, because that is a bit advanced, so yeah, that might put some people off completely. So, but if you stay tuned, we'll get to that, basically, yeah. Okay, all right, another thing quickly now. So let's say you are giving this particular site actually to test, but with one feature to test if the search functionality is working, right? So as a tester, you will write your test cases. So I think that's a question. Okay. So let's say we have this particular manual test scenario, actually. So let's say our test is basically to search for courses. Okay, let's say this is the story, right? The BA has written that story for us, and we got that story, and we as a tester, as testers, we need to now test it. So what do you need to do? Quickly, I will tell you what the story should be like. So when you type into this particular search field, you should after you type into this field, click on the button, right? Then after you click on the button here, then it should take you to the search result, basically. And your search result should show courses related to what you've searched. So that is what we are going to test. So, and so let's go through this quickly together. So now, for those guys that are already conversant with manual testing, so, and you should know this basically. So you have your serial number, your action, expected result, and your actual outcome, then your remark. Basically, this is kind of like a template for manual testing. So this is my test condition. So my test one is search for courses on prepmajor.com. So for me to do that, what do I need to go? So the first thing, I need to kind of open prepmajor.com. Okay. So can someone help me with the next step, please? If you want to talk, you can talk. If you want to type, you can type. Let's make it interactive. What's the next step?
Navigate to search field.
Okay, thank you. Navigate to search field. Okay. What's the next one? Another person?
Type the course.
Type the course. Okay. And what's the next one?
Click the button.
Thank you. Then click the button. And what's the next one?
It should take you to the search results.
Thank you. So search results is displayed. Another step? Oh, sorry, search. Any other step?
Compare the search results with the actual results.
Thank
the
you. So,
results,
yeah. So compare the results. Okay. All right. So any other thing?
The remark, whether it passed or failed.
Okay. All right. So let's say remark. Okay, good. Okay. All right. I think that, okay. I guess you're not talking about, you're talking about the other one. Okay. All right. The remark here, pass or fail. That's good. Thank you, everyone. So this is really good. I don't want to kind of talk about how this is written. To be honest, we talk about this one later, to be honest, because there are different ways that you can actually write this actually. So, and this is another discussion on its own, to be honest, but I think this would do, since we understand. The first thing, you open Prep Major, right? You navigate to the search field, you type your course, you click on the login on the button, and then the result is displayed. You compare your result. Manually, this is what you would do. Your expected result, right? So when you open Prep Major, what do you need to see? What are you expecting? So I would say Prep Major
Homepage.
Yeah, homepage is displayed successfully. So then, to be honest, this particular field, this particular step, I'll put it in orange for now, which I think it might be redundant, to be honest, right? Because as you can see, already you have that basically, right? So let's leave that for now, to be honest. So, and then what do? You type your course, right? So, and some people, you will put the course is displayed. Then when you click on here, basically, when you click on the button, your expected result is actually this one, to be honest. So you might, in some cases, you might need to move this to this point, right? Because when you click on the button, your search result is displayed. So now that is that. So then you can compare the results. And so this is how you will write it in, or let's say in manual testing. So, and like you might have been told during the manual testing, most of us have done testing in one way or the other, to be honest. So like, for instance, if I use this particular site because most of you guys here already gone through this particular site to register for the course, basically. So you are familiar about it. So, and it's easy for you to understand what it does. So, and let's now convert this one into BDD format, right? So that we can use it in our automation. So that's what we need to do now. So how do we convert this into BDD format? So the first thing you need to do is a giving clause, basically. So can someone help me with that giving clause? How do we write it? So let me go back here quickly. Let's open one of them. Okay. Okay, let's open this one. Okay, how do you write that one? So let's now say this is our BDD format. Any help?
Given
Okay.
that.
Given that,
Okay. All right, go ahead.
so given that a prep measure is loaded on a browser successfully, when a user clicks on the search fee, and
okay, all right, let's take one after the other because the text is also very important. Any objection to this? Because I think this can be improved.
Yeah, I think you first of all need to launch your browser.
Okay, all right, so that's another giving. Okay, I open the browser, right? Okay, that's another, someone said that. Okay, all right, so then you, what do you do?
and type prepmeasure.com.
Okay, and type prepmeasure.com.
Is that not basically the same thing as given that prepmeasure.com is loaded on a browser successfully?
That's a good question. That's a good question, to be honest. So, which is really, really good. So, I like when we are kind of talking and interacting. So, what is the difference, basically? One, because sometimes we tend to forget, because we do something every time, we tend to forget some of the steps that we take, basically. It's like, if you ask you now, how do you go to your house? Or how do you log into Zoom? Sometimes you will just say, yeah, I click on the link, and that will be it. There's some other step that you do that you technically forget. So for instance, for you to open Prep Major, you need to first open your browser first. You need to open your browser first. Let me show you what I am talking about. So now, so maybe I didn't start it properly at the beginning, right? So when you open your browser, this is what you have. Then the next thing is for you to say prepmeasure.com, right? So the first thing you need to fire up your, bear in mind, you are not going to be doing this. You need to instruct your code. You need to instruct the computer to do all the steps. So each of these steps are very, very important, as well as open the browser, type this, type this, type this. Every step that you do manually has to be coded. So because at the back end, that's what we need to code. That's why I'm trying to go through the steps. So one thing, when I teach this, I teach like kind of step by step so that you understand what you need to do. Then the next one is, how do I need to do it, basically? Because the next question is like, for code, how do I need to implement this? I open browser. I know how to do it manually, but how do I need to open it with the computer, with my code? That is the next step we're going to talk about later. But yeah, as you know now, so we have our browser opened. Then the next one is someone said open prep major or something like that. I would just use. So if you are not talking, please, can you be muted if that's okay? Thank you. So, okay. Okay, the next step is navigate. All right. So that's another thing that's very, very important. So you navigate to prep major.com. So, like I said before, this is similar to say giving, like these two giving, basically giving I open a browser, giving I navigate to prep major. So we kind of concatenate those two together. So using the AND clause, right? And I navigate to prepmajor.com. So, and that is the next thing that you need to do. So for you to basically, I know someone said type, which is also right, but you want to use the right terminology, to be honest. So, which is basically, instead of saying type, you will say navigate, basically. Yeah, or some people say browse too. Yeah, so which I think is a bit better than typing, right? So then what is the next step that we need to do? So you can see now, instead of us saying open prep major manually, we have two steps, because I think that is what is the last speaker was talking about. Because for manually, one, open prep major, everyone knows that they need to put the browser on and type something. That's what we, but for computer, you need to specify those two steps. So what is the next step, please, guys?
We introduce the when clause now.
Okay, cool. That's good. So we put the when clause now.
When a user types prep, the course, what is it? The course title in the search field.
Okay, the course title. Okay, all right. So one thing that, thank you for that, actually. So one thing I want to say quickly, because some people will be confused. You are not going to be typing this in Excel, right? So I'm just using this because I don't want to complicate tools, right? With you learning how to write this, basically. That's one thing I normally do. So because I know most people, you know how to use Excel or you know how to use Word. Let's first focus on how to write it. Then we now talk about where do you need to write it normally. So that I just need to clarify that. So when a user type the course title in the search field. So now this is another discussion that normally at office I normally have, like, how do I write my BDD? Do I write it in like a user, giving a user navigate, or a user? So that there's different school of thought in that. So you can have some people writing their BDD in this way, giving a user opens okay, and the user navigates to, and then, so depending on what you choose, I don't think any is wrong, but most often I kind of normally personalize this, basically, if that's fine. But I know in some other places you can also use giving a user, but there's other one that you would actually specify the persona of that particular user instead of saying a user. So you can have something like, if it's an admin, if it's a standard user, if it's an ordinary user, or if it's a tutor, a student, like in case of prep major right now, you can be a mentor, you can be a student. So basically, as a tutor, you would post courses. As a student, you will enroll for the course. So you can say like that as well. You can say something, giving a student opens a browser, okay, and the student navigates whatever you want. So, which is, I think it's also okay. So after that is clear. So I just put this at the side. Okay, so I'll just stick with this personification now. I say I type the course title in the search field. I like the fact that it's very, very specific, actually saying that, okay, is the search field that you want to use, because there might be other fields on the page. So you need to kind of be specific. So then what is the next thing that we need to do?
And I click on the search button.
And I click on the search button. Thank you. So then what's the next one?
Then the result.
Then, which is now the result. So what should be the result now?
Then the course title should be displayed.
The course title. Is that all?
That's all for me.
Okay. Any other one? Anyone?
Compare your results.
Okay. And the result is correct. Okay. Let's just say something like that, because it like, for instance, this is I'm also okay to leave this one out, to be honest. So, and if you add it, that's fine. Some people are explicit in how they write their test cases. Some people are kind of descriptive, basically putting everything together. There is different school of thought on this particular one. Whether I will show, maybe next week I'll bring another slide that actually explains how different people write the BDD. So basically, let's leave this for now, okay? So this is basically that, right? And so this is one scenario that we've written, which I think is really, really good. So now, so this will be, is it valid or invalid that we're expecting?
We're expecting a valid result.
Okay, let's say this is for valid one. So as a tester also, you know, you don't only test the valid ones, you also need to test the invalid one as well. So now for the invalid one, what do we do? So what do we do when we want to search invalid ones? So let's say this is invalid now. What are the what step do you need to take?
We will be taking the same step and just be changing stuff as we go along.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're taking the same step, right? And
change some of the inputs as we go along.
okay, that is what I am expecting, because that leads me to a different subject that I want to talk about, which is parameterization, right? So before I talk about that, so what you're saying right now, what's going to change is the course title, right? Because we want to enter a course title that is not
what we're looking for. Yes,
exactly. So now you can say something like enter course title. Okay, let's just say invalid course title, right? And no, sorry, the when clause rather. So when I enter,
I think, Mr. Digi,
yes,
what may I think is that instead of you saying click on the search button and then you go to the next one that says, and the course title should be displayed. Because if you say you should type invalid course, anything can come up, because we want to see whether one of the features or functionalities is behaving just like search button. It depends on what the requirement says anyway. So like that search button, we can say, instead of us saying click on the search button, we can click on another features, and we want to see whether it will lead us to the course title should be displayed.
Okay, what you're saying is like when I enter something like that, right? Or let's say I enter, let's say like that, okay? And I click on this one, is that, can you guide me through what you're saying?
Yeah, like that. Now, if we click on that,
okay,
and then instead of us clicking on that search button, that exactly that's one,
okay,
it will lead us to the next page that says,
yes,
and the course title should be displayed. But instead of that, instead of us to test that functionality to see that it's working fine, we can click on another functionality to see whether it's behaving just like search button.
Okay, so basically I can click on this
exactly,
one.
on that one, exactly, to see whether
to show that, yeah, okay,
it's working as that one.
Okay, all right. So to be honest, I think it's valid, but it depends on the risk actually, right? So this is another thing that the manual testing guys would talk about, because if you do that, there will be 1,000 cases, right, that you can do, right? Because you would say, okay, let me click on this, click on that, click on this one, click on that, click on that, click on that. So in that case, you might get blown out actually in terms of the test cases. But of course, it's valid to say that, so for instance, what you would do, this another thing I'm expecting the manual testing guys to do, is like your test design, basically. So there's kind of test design techniques that you need to look into. So if you just Google that out, in my slide before now, I kind of skip that because this is not manual testing class. So, but I can quickly go through that just for a moment. It's actually in the other, okay. Okay, so there are testing techniques that you need to employ when you are testing, basically. Otherwise, you are going to be testing forever, basically. So in order not to do that, you need to use some techniques. Some of them is boundary value analysis or equivalent partitioning, basically. And which basically you will look at your test cases and you will segregate them and say that, so because this is not the class for that, I'll just quickly mention that. So in your invalid test cases, you would look at them and say, what are the things I want to test? Basically, I want to test invalid characters, okay? Invalid characters. So, and you could also have invalid entry. Let's say that, invalid entry. So invalid entry in the sense that it is basically the characters is okay, it is English, everything, or it doesn't return anything, basically. So, and so invalid operation, let's say that one, okay? So what you are talking about is like that, basically, when you perform invalid operation. So you are meant to click on the search button, but you didn't click it, right? So, but like I said, all these there can be lots of them. So sometimes you might need to look at the risk and say, if I'm able to consider this, is that enough? Is that values, basically? So that's another thing that you need to consider. So I think that's fine. Let us continue if that's okay. Okay, all right. So now we've talk about the invalid one, which is this particular one. So another one, okay, let's quickly look at the key invalid one, basically. The key one, basically. The key invalid one is when you enter stuff. However, there's other valid one, yeah, invalid one like empty, basically. When you put empty, what does it do, basically? Does it return something for you or not? Or which could be a valid one. So you need to look into that one. So basically, in your test design techniques or scenario, you need to kind of factor them into where they belong, basically, and group them appropriately, basically. So now let's look into this and say, okay, when I enter, I'll just, for the sake of my time and your time, I'll just say when I enter invalid. So instead of type, I would just use enter invalid course title. So by invalid, I mean course title that is not in the database, basically. So, and I click on the search, then I'm expecting the, no, sorry, this is not
An
right.
error message.
Yeah. Course.
I think the best negative test we can use for this is to leave that field as null. We do not put anything in the field at all. And then if that field is left like that and you click on the search button, nothing will be returned.
Okay, all right. So that is another, that's what I'm saying, that you need to look at all those scenarios in terms of negative testing. There are lots that you can consider, to be honest, as you can see. Yeah. So, but you don't have all the time in the whole world to consider all the cases. So you have to measure it based on the risk, right? To say, if I don't consider that, is it going to be the end of the world, right? Or if I don't do this, well, and also to actually measure them to say which one is the most important one, to be honest. So I would say the most important one is the one that, for instance, if I want to start, if I search for something that is not valid, available on prep major, then I should not even see error message, basically, right? I should see a page that says that the course is not available, basically. So, like, let's say I'm looking for, can you give me like a sample of something that?
Maths.
What?
React.
So I didn't get that.
Mathematics.
Okay, mathematics. Okay. Okay. All right, thanks. So let's say I look for mathematics actually. So, and I click on that. So it should show me that no courses is found, basically. That is what you're expecting. So that is another kind of negative cases. But in some cases, this negative scenario could also form as part of another valid scenario that you are testing, because this could be another test case on its own, right? That you use that. So this is another thing. So let's say, and I search for invalid, then okay, or let's say not invalid. So and I type in the message. Okay, so, and of course, you don't need this. So basically that is that, right? So in this one now, so you can have other ones as well, like we've established, right? So like that. So now, if you are going to be writing this in your feature file, so let me just bring a PowerPoint. No, so Okay, let's say this is our IDE basically. So if you were to write this in your feature file, so we copy this one. So like I said, right, you are going to have your feature at the top and follow with a semicolon, right? So, and then you have search, okay? And then you can have your comments, or as well, you can have blah, blah as a user of Prep Manager. So that is what you would write. So as a user of Prep Major, I want to search for a course. So I mentioned about indentation. So as you can see, it's easy it's easy to read when you've indented it. So this is your feature file as this. So when you do that, so that you can be able to enroll. So that is what you would do. Then you have your scenario as that. So, and you also put your, what is this scenario? So let's say this is my search. Okay, so that is my one. So I can put this also. Let's say I use 2, yeah. So the same way also you put your scenarios on the next one. So, and this you maybe, let's say invalid. And another scenario is there as well. So let's say this is another invalid one. So, and now, so this is what we have here. So, and I'm going to open another notebook. So now let us now convert this now using background, okay? So we copy this now. We need to use background. So as you can see, if you are to run this manually, so okay, this is also there. Okay, so if you are to run this now, so this is going to be executed, followed by this, followed by this. But right now, we found that these particular scenarios, or these ones, are the same, basically. We are just repeating them. So for that, what you do, you can put them in your background. Put them in your background. And so you remove this one. Okay, so they become your background, and you will need to remove them from the other ones. Okay, so this means that when your background runs, when this one runs, then it goes from here, 1, 2, then. So I will tell you the steps now. So it's going to be step 1, then step 2. So you have step 3, step 4, and you have step 5 and step 6. So then it comes back again. So this becomes another step 7, step 8, and then 9, 10, 11. Then it comes back to the top again, and it does this number 12. This is now the steps 12, 13, and then goes back to this one, 14, 15, and 16. Okay, so that is the step if you use background. Okay, so that is one. So another thing that we've also found out actually using this one is now we have invalid scenarios, but we need to know what is the invalid text that we're talking about.
Excuse me, sorry to ask.
Yes, please.
Excuse me, the is it not same for both is it 13 and 14 and the one over it?
13 and 14.
For this, yeah, that's when I enter invalid course title in the search field. It's the same thing with the one above. So why didn't we have?
Yeah. I just kind of copy it anyway, just an example. Let's
Okay.
assume this is
Okay.
a different one. So let's say I entered, let's say I put instead of this, I say empty, basically. Yeah.
Okay,
Just to
okay.
show it as an example. Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Yeah.
No worries. Okay, so now let's go to the next one now. Okay, so how do we parameterize it? Our steps. How do you parameterize your steps? So because sometimes you want to put you want to say, okay, I want to enter internship here because I know that would display something. So, and what you need to do basically, you need to parameterize your steps, right? So given I enter, so let's say instead of saying course title, you can put your parameter here. So before I do that quickly, so if you do something like this, the text that you enter will be in your step definition. You don't need to care about what step definition is right now. I will tell you next week. So the text that you are typing will be your step definition, so which is a C# code. But however, you might want to say, I want to see my text here, right? What you are typing here. So in that case, you can put it in your feature file. So you just put it in quotes. So given I type the course title internship in the search field, basically. So that allows you to be able to see what you are typing by just reading your feature file. So, and also next time when you decide to say that, okay, I'm not going to search for internship, I'm going to search for only intern. You just need to come here and change it. So you don't need to go and change it inside your C# code, which is the step definition. So that is but you can actually change it. And also when you, let's say you also come here, when you come here and you said, okay, let's say this now, you can put something like this and say, I enter blah, 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 okay? Let's say we've kind of looked at mathematics and we didn't see anything. So, and you can do like that. So, and so in your step definition, this step and this step will be one code basically. So they work in one code. So basically, you are actually using that to repeat the step. You are not writing different code for each of the steps, because in your step definition, you need to write code for each one of these lines, because this line, as you can see, they are English and computer does not understand it basically. So you would need to write the code for them. That's why for now I say you don't need to worry, but you just need to understand how it works. So you will need to be writing the code. But if you parameterize it like this one and this one, even though they are different, they are only different by the parameter. So if they're only different by the parameter, you can use the same code for both of them. You can use the same code. But like this one now, it has to be a different code entirely, not the same code as this one. But when you use parameter, you can use the same. So it actually saves you some time writing different code for different lines. So that's why, and you only need to kind of change it basically. So that's one thing you need to consider. All right, any question on this? So this is going to be the BDD part. So there is also, if you have any question, you can type it. So before I leave, the other things I need to do now. So let's assume now you also want to use scenario outline for a case like this. So for scenario outline, let me bring another notepad. Like I said, you are not going to be writing after today. You are not going to be using Notepad. You are going to be using Visual Studio. So we install Visual Studio before we leave tonight. So by next week, we are going to be writing it on Visual Studio. I don't want to complicate issues of Visual Studio. You understanding how Visual Studio works and also understanding how BDD works. So that's why I just start with this particular one, so that you can understand how to write this without having to complicate the tools with it. So now let's say you want to write this using scenario outline. So, or let's say we have something like this. Okay, so I think I need my features as well at the top. Another thing that the tools would do for you is it would help you correct your errors. You see errors. I'm very sure that there might be some errors, syntax error in what I've written, because I cannot see them right now because I'm not using the right tool, basically. But the tools will highlight it for you and say, oh, you've done a mistake here. So now let's quickly look into this one and see how to use scenario outline. Like I said, for you to use scenario outline, just change this one to scenario outline, right? So every scenario outline will have example. You have examples. So now, and you would follow it with a pipe. So if you don't know where the pipe is, so on my keyboard, I don't know, on my keyboard is after the left shift, right? So, or below your cap lock. So if you don't know, you can actually just copy one from the internet. So, but you will look at that particular shift slash, something like that. So if you look into that shift slash, so, okay. So now, what are your examples? Your examples is going to be the variables that you want to change. Your variables in there right now, it's basically the title. So we can change this now to course title. I can just do like that. But in some cases, you might need to put it in quote like this as well. So depending on what is going to, yeah, so we'll just leave it like that. So, and that is your title now. So this will be a parameter or a variable. So you would now put your heading like title. What are the titles that you are thinking of getting? So then you might also want to look at, and the result is, so, and you would also put this as your result. So, which is now another parameter, basically, because we know that okay, so let's leave this so that I don't want to confuse this. So we just use this particular one, and the course is displayed or not displayed. So this is what we are looking for now. So let me just put this one and say, this is my result. Okay, so now in my scenario outline, So I'm going to delete the rest. So all this one is what I want to kind of write here. So I've got title and I've got results. Okay, for my title, I think I said, okay, internship, right? So I know there are courses with that. So, and the result is displayed. So then I have mathematics. And the result is not displayed. So basically now from here, so all this one that we've written here, like this, right? I've kind of now restricted it or into this particular form, basically, and say search, yeah. So given I open my browser, when I navigate this, then I click on my title and I type my title and I click on search, then I can find my results. So, and my result is now parameterized and my title is also parameterized. So basically, so I've got two scenarios now. This are the two scenarios. So when I type internship here, and my result is the courses, that particular course is displayed. When I type mathematics, that's second scenario, and the course is not displayed. So you can add other ones to say, okay, when you put empty or something like that, so like that, and you can say not displayed as well. So with this, you don't even need to change your scenarios. You can only be adding a lot of examples, actually, like the other speaker that talk about different negative testing that you want to do. If you have 1,000 negative testing, you can put this right now. But however, because it's going to be long, so you would need to use a different tool. Let's say you only have 20, you can just put them in these particular examples, and that will be it. So this is a practical explanation of what I have used this slide for. Any question? Okay. For next week, we're going to start using Visual Studio. So before I leave now, I would talk about Visual Studio, how you can install Visual Studio.